Hey everyone, this is Anna here, and in this video I would like to go over some Q&A that I get a lot. Like I mentioned on my previous video, I get questions through emails and Instagram, Facebook about the technique Cuerda Seca, and I would like to answer some of these questions. But first of all, I would like to show you some tests that I've done with a new glaze. And this is, I use Lagona Versa 5, which is also a real stable glaze to make for the painting for Cuerda Seca. Again, this was just a test, but I was able to achieve the relief on the glaze where the glaze is raised, and I will explain a little bit when I get to the questions and answers, but just wanted to show you this style. It's hard to show and capture the details on videos and pictures because it gives a real nice glossy texture. Same thing on this one. And this is on porcelain, but you can see, I think you can see a little better on this one. You see how the glaze is raised. So that was a nice result I got with the Lagona Versa. And this one is an older tile that I have a video. In fact, it's a little dirty now, but as you can see, this one was using Mayco Stroke and Coat. So sorry with the glare, but I think you can see how the glazes are like they're raised from the surface. So let's get started. I have like 13 questions and I hope I answer them well, and let me know in the comments if you guys have any further questions and I can answer on the comments. And let's get started. So first question is, what is Cuerda Seca? So what the translation of Cuerda Seca is dry rope or dry cord. And why is it? I'm not sure. I have an idea why they call it that. So the dry is because the oil mixture would resemble the dry rope, like where your design is. So the line work is what I think they call the dry rope, is the line work. So because it is an oil mixture mixed with oxides, so when it's fired, it stays on the surface. So you don't get that raised effect at all with your line work. So that's why it's called Cuerda Seca. Now the glazes, when you glaze and you flood the area within your line work, the glaze is raised. So you get that difference with the line work is flat on the surface, the glazes are raised. So it gives a real nice effect. And it originated, from what I could tell when I Googled, like since the 14th century in Persia. But they also say that it originated in Spain and Portugal. So I think it was brought into Spain and Portugal later, where it became even more popular. And they have records of finding this technique on tiles, which was what was mainly used on, but we'll get to that one later. So that is the translation of dry rope and this technique that I was intrigued by a few years ago, and I really started researching and practicing, and it's wonderful. It's really, once you start it, it's like, I can't stop now. Does the oil smear? That's a question that I get asked quite a bit. Yes, the oil mixture never dries because it absorbs some, on the either bisque, if you paint on bisque or greenware, it gets absorbed, but because it is oil mixed with oxide, it stays on the surface. So you need to plan ahead the shape of the piece that you want to make, because you have to plan for how you want to hold your piece. So for example, if it is a tile will be easier because you can put it on top of a surface and you can just paint on with the applicator. Some people also use a brush. And I've also seen where there is this gadget that I think it's used for painters, where it glides over, so it leaves a room about this much from your piece. It's just a hand support. I don't have one, but I found that if I start making more tiles, that maybe I should invest on this piece, and I will put a link on here too, that I found that it would be very helpful for people who make a lot of tiles. But yes, to answer that question, it is always going to smear. If you're making a mug or a vase or whatever, a vertical surface that you're gonna paint on, usually what I do, I put my hand inside and I will be painting very carefully not to touch. So I start from the top and I work my way down and then keep on moving, rotating my hand inside the piece. So that's how I do it. So it's something that you need to plan ahead to be able to, paint without touching. But yes, unfortunately, that's one of the things that it is hard to get used to, is that you will smear. Now, if it smears, sometimes you can rub a little alcohol with a little cloth, a little towel, and try to rub it off. If it stays a little bit, sometimes you can glaze right over, it will not show, because I've done it before. If it is a lot, you can try to scrape it with an X-Acto knife or a little sgraffito tool. I use that also if you make a mistake with your lines or whatever. But you will smear. Do you paint on bisqueware or greenware? That's a question. I prefer bisqueware. I have tested also on greenware. It works depending on the clay. So the clay that I used was Terra Red by Aardvark on greenware, and it works fine. But that clay I've also tested to make a single fire, which means once you paint, you can just do one single fire all the way to the glaze, to mid-range. So could be, I think that one can go from anywhere from a cone 2 to a cone, I think it was cone 6, something like that I fired to, and it works. So it all gonna depend on the clay and the glazes that you use, if it is a low fire glaze or high fire glaze that you're using. But yeah, it can be done on either one. I prefer bisqueware. What kind of glazes can be used for Cuerda Seca? So any glaze, as long as they are stable, which means they don't move during the glaze firing. I like to use the Mayco Stroke and Coat. There is a variety of, a range of colors that you can choose from, a wide range of colors. I think I own a lot of the colors, because they can always be intermixed, the colors, and you can mix them as you're painting also. And they can be fired to a cone 06 all the way to a cone 10. So you can use it also with the different types of clay bodies. Lately, like I mentioned on the beginning, I've tested Lagona Versa 5, and it works really well for this application. So it is a very stable glaze. I suggest you always test it first, do a little test style, depending on what you want to use the Cuerda Seca for. If you want to paint it on a horizontal surface or vertical, and you fire it that way with the glazes that you want to use, just to make sure that they don't move. Even within that line of glazes, sometimes there is a color that is going to run a little more or move a little more than other colors. Like I found that the purple, for some reason, runs a little more. So not run, but moves a little more. So sometimes if you use in a place that you put it really raised and you fire into a vertical surface, sometimes the glaze can move beyond that your line works. So you can kind of mix in with the other color that is right underneath. It's not a big deal. That happens, you know, that is acceptable with Cuerda Seca. It happens. Everybody that I've seen that does Cuerda Seca, sometimes you see here and there a place where the glaze will run slightly. It's not like it's gonna ruin your whole piece because of that. So that is the two glazes that I've used so far. There is also places where those types of glazes are not, you can't purchase that. In some countries, they're not available. And some places, they even offer some glazes that are specifically for Cuerda Seca. I don't have a recipe for Cuerda Seca glazes. I know that they're out there somewhere. I have searched on Google, but I can't find a glaze that for sure you will be like really stable, like these glazes that I use, the commercial glazes. I've done a little bit of research that if you add a little bit of more bentonite to a glaze, it will make the glaze really stable. I don't know, I haven't tested that. I've read that somewhere. But I know there's gotta be recipes there for glazes, because in other countries that's all they use instead of using commercial glazes. I haven't found it. So if you have a glaze that you have a recipe, please send it to me. I would love to try it. So I haven't yet. Can you use another type of resist like black wax resist, which is available? Yes, you can. And to me, if you achieve that the same results, for me, I still think of that as being Cuerda Seca, even though it's not the original method that is used, which is the oil and a glaze. If you use what's newer nowadays to use and you achieve the same thing, I believe it's still Cuerda Seca. So if you find it easier to use it with a black wax resist, go ahead and use it. I think you're still going to achieve the same thing. I've tried with wax resist. I didn't like it because I tried using with a brush, because that's what I like to paint the lines. I believe you could also use a real thin applicator if that works. I'm not sure, but all I've done is a little test. For me personally, I didn't like it, but I know a lot of people use wax resist. I also have a video that I show how to use it with a pencil or graphite. If you use a real thin tip, like a mechanical pencil, like a 0.07 millimeter or 0.05, and make it real dark. So I don't know if it was an HB that I use, but you can test it. But you can make your design with a graphite, and then the graphite, from what I understand, is an oil base, so that alone will resist the glaze. So the only thing with that is that the graphite gets burned out during the firing. So you're left with your lines, they're gonna be the color of your clay after it's fired. So, but yeah, there are different ways that you can achieve the same results. For myself, I like the oil resist. How can I produce a design to make several tiles the same? That was a question I've was asked. I haven't tried that, but I know for places that's all they make. They make a bunch of tiles all the same and they sell them. It would be taking forever if they had to paint each tile individually. So I've seen videos. If you guys want to either send me a message or I can send you the video I found on YouTube by just searching. But they do have a method of silk screening, and they use the oil just like, I don't know what that's called, the thing that it's almost like a rubber, I don't know what's the name of that, but it's something that they use to push the oil back and forth through the silk screen, and that goes into each tile. So that same design, you can do it over and over. So I've seen it, and if you guys want to see it, I can send it to you. Can you use under glazes for Cuerda Seca? Yes, I believe you can, but you wouldn't achieve the same effect, that same raised effect that you get with the glaze. So you can. I've never done it, but I guess you would just be a different thing. I don't think it would be Cuerda Seca, but it is achievable. I just never tried it. What gauges for the tips that I use, like for the little bottle applicator, what gauge of the tip do I use? So I like using either 18 or 19, but you can try other ones. So the 19 gauge is 1 millimeter thin, the diameter. The 18 is a little more, so as the number goes down, the size gets bigger. So the 18 is a little bigger than the 19. I like using 19. So I'll put the link of the ones that I use. It's actually used by dentists, I believe. You can buy a whole bag, like this big, full. I don't know how many pieces are in the bag, but that will last you a long time. But I buy the tips separate. Should the glazes be watered down? And that's a yes. You need to add a little water on the glaze. When I put on the applicator, I just add a few drops, and that is for a better flow of the glaze. It flows better through the little thin tip. And also, when you add the water, it makes the glaze stay within the lines. So if you get it too thick and you squeeze that glaze, which would be kind of heavy and creamy, sometimes it's really easy to go over the line. So your oil won't resist as well as if it was watered down, because as you know, water and oil don't mix. So if it is watery, it's better. It's also better to squeeze more and get that raised effect. Is the technique mainly used on tiles or flat surfaces? Yes, it was used more on tiles, and I believe it still is used a lot more on tiles or flat surfaces than vertical. But I've done a lot on vertical surfaces, like my mugs, vases, and different things that I've tried, and it works just as well, as long as the glaze that you're using are stable, they don't move. So that works. What's the best way to transfer a design on your bisque? So for me, what I found is the best thing to do is using a carbon paper and just tracing it over your design. That was the easiest one I found. I do a lot of just hand drawing, hand sketching, but sometimes if you can trace, like from a picture, a bird that you see, you can trace it out of a picture, put a carbon paper behind and transfer that to your piece. That's the easiest for me. Can you intermix the glaze when painting to get the shadows and the highlights? effects. And yes, I've done it with Mayco and Laguna. You can, let's say, for example, here on these flowers here, I believe I used candy apple red, and this one around here is speckled pinkaboo, which is a pink color glaze, and then I just made the middle darker with the color. And then I ran with a little brush as I was squeezing. After I squeezed the glaze, I got a small round brush, and I just kind of mix it in a little bit so it makes the transition from one color to the other, so it's not like a line. I just kind of make it fade and fade in with the other color. Same thing with the with the hummingbird. As you can see how it goes from purple to green and yellow. I used a little brush just to mix the colors and make that gradient color, intermixing the colors like that. So yes, it's a lot of fun to play with that. And like I said, I've done it with the Mayco Stroke and Coat and the Lagona Versa 5 glaze. And the last question that I have is, can I use this technique even if I'm not a painter? And the answer is yes, you can. It takes a little practice, a little getting used to. I went through it. You test, but to me, the fun part is, you know, testing something until you get there. So there's a little bit of a learning curve, just because even when I tell you, you know, how to mix the oil, you still need to practice to get that perfect consistency that's gonna work really well. But the actual painting is just squeezing the glaze within your lines, and in the line work or your design. If you know, are not that inclined for making hand drawing, you can get a drawing from a picture, trace it, and put it over your design and transfer it. So there are different ways that you can do it, but I believe anybody can do it. So, and that's it. Let me know if I didn't answer something here. I was trying to get all my questions that I get and try to answer all of them. So, but I'm pretty excited about this test that I did with this Versa 5 glaze. I was able to make it even thicker than with the Stroke and Coat. For some reason, I found it even a little bit more stable. So I haven't tried yet on a vertical surface like this. This was just a tile fired this way. So the next thing I will do is try it on a mug, you know, but it is really nice. I don't know if you guys can see it on the side here. It warped a little bit because this is porcelain. It was just a test, but you see how raised I was able to achieve that, as opposed to where the line is. It creates that dome, so it's very nice. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and I will be back with some more videos soon, right after my vacation. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.